Okay, so for the mouth area, I've got my little reference guide here blown up next door to where I'm going to be painting, and I've got you know, your photograph reference and your painting reference. I mean, on this kind of replica, and it could just be because I haven't seen your painting in the flesh yet, so to speak, obviously, but you know, looking at this as it is on this replica, the mouth has come up really kind of red and very separate from the rest of the face. It's very well formed and everything. It's just probably the colour in the print has come out a bit too strong. But looking at the photograph of your painting, we probably do still have to look at that. I know that you've put some of the light, the sort of ambient light from the surrounding light, over the bottom lip there, but I'm just wondering into the corners, because if you notice on this reference picture and you know, your photograph over here, there isn't a massive amount of difference in the colours and tones from the surrounding skin there, you know. And it's an odd thing with lip colour, because the skin on your lips is different to the skin on your face. It's thinner, so that's why, you know, it appears you know, to be redder than the rest of your skin, because it, you know, you can, you know, it's thinner, it's more translucent, if you like. So we need to just temper this a little bit with the surrounding cut. So we're going to be still using the flesh tones. I'm just going to take up my number 2 sable filbert brush, and I'm just going to choose the mid-tone again. I'm going to try and mix up a little bit more as we did yesterday. I'm going to start with the crimson with some white as the base, and then I'm going to introduce quite a bit of the Naples yellow and some of the zinc white there, just to get that going, and some of the linseed as well. Okay, I'm just going to paint a bit of excess off there. So looking at this side of the face, what I'm going to do is just, because there isn't much on this brush, so you know, we're dealing with semi-transparent paint again, but so I'm just going to take up a bit of liquid first, just to knock that back even more. I'm trying to get the consistency of the pigment right, and I'm just going to brush it down onto that lip again, scumble it over, so you can still see beneath that, so you haven't lost that shape. I'm just going to do it from the top as well. Okay, and then over on this side, and take some zinc white and a bit of the liquid, just to lighten up that light flesh tone even more, because we're dealing with this side of the face that's got the most light coming in. I'm going to just do a few directional brush strokes over the lip on this side as well. I'm just going to knock back some of these harder lines. Okay. So we've knocked the kind of red, the rosy red of the mouth back a little bit there. So we're just going to reinstate a little bit of the drawing and then finesse some colour back in to it. So I'm going to take up my fine sable brush, my naught. I've just wiped it off. I'm going to pick up a little bit of the liquid I want a little bit of the crimson and a bit of a bit of the yellow ochre. Having problems speaking today. So we've got that sort of orangey kind of pink going on there. Just going to paint a little bit down on there onto the glass so I can see that it's see-through, which it is. And I'm going to bring my mole stick back in. I'm going to try not to obscure too much. And I'm just going to start doing some directional marks back in. I think that's too strong. Let's take up a bit more of that flesh tone pink to mix with it. This is what I mean, it's so subtle, it really is, and you know, it takes a little bit of time and effort just to kind of work with the flesh tone colours to get it right, really. So all I'm doing with my fine brush there is just following the lines of the lips as the, you know, the direction of the lip as it comes out from the picture plane, if that makes sense. I want it to be a bit rosier than that. I'm wondering if I should get a little bit of cadmium red in this. I'm just going to put a little bit of the cad red down, just a smudge really, because I don't really want much. Let's bring that into the mix on this very light colour. So with this flesh tone, we've got, it's a mix of Naples yellow, crimson, the zinc white, and now a tiny bit of cadmium red, tiny bit, so it's just more rosy colour. Yeah, that's better. That's better. Just want to get some more liquid with that as well. I'm trying not to get in the way of the camera. whilst I'm painting, but I do need to be quite close to the painting as well, so it's a bit tricky. You know, at this stage I'd be, you know, fairly close to the painting. But I don't want to obscure. So all I'm doing really, I've knocked that mouth colour right back. You can still discern it beneath these thin strokes of paint, but it's not, you know, because on your reference photo I don't think you are actually wearing any lipstick on the reference picture, so I just think, you know, it gives it a far softer, more natural look. And we're going to just go outside of the lip area as well, because some of that lip colour is present just below. So don't be afraid to do that, you know. I think sometimes people think, oh well, you know, the lip colour is so different, and you know that therefore it has to be very different, you know, stand out. And actually that's just our kind of perception of it. It's not, in reality, you know, it's not really that much different. I think I might have to switch back to my number 2 brush in a minute. I'm just going to see if I can zoom in a little bit on this so you can get perhaps see a bit better what I'm doing, particularly on the mouth, because you know, I think that's the trickiest part to kind of get right, if you like. Okay. So I've just got a bit more crimson and mixed it in with the cad red and the white. I'm just using my fine brush to kind of get rid of that hard edge. Because this is where it goes back to the painting what is there, what you see, rather than what you think is there. You know, this is the constant battle with painting, is getting your head around this concept, because you know, always your brain is telling you, no, you know, that it looks like this, even though you can see with your own eyes that it doesn't look like that, you know. So it's taking these judgments all the time, and all I'm doing here is playing with the paint again, playing with the different aspects of the paint. I'm mixing a slightly darker tone to take into that central area where the lips meet, because although it's darker, I don't think it's quite as dark as we currently have it. So it's all about tempering the light and shade all the time with this. I'm going to bring a bit more Payne's Grey into that flesh tone. So it's just breaking up that line and describing how the shadow kind of gently spills out over that bottom lip. So it's just making everything more subtle and tempering it really gently, if that makes sense. I'm just going to wipe that off the brush a little bit. I'm going to go back to my zinc white and this mid-tone pink. So as you can see, I mean, it's so minimal what I'm doing here, but it kind of, at this stage, all these little final touches are the difference between, you know, it being a mediocre sort of, yeah, it's kind of an alright painting, to something that looks a little bit more polished and professional. And again, I'm just going to go in now just to pick up some of this light on the outer rim. That's probably a bit too strong. Let me... So it's just very slight. See what I'm doing? Just kind of working the brush strokes in a downward motion over the edge of the lip, because the light is just picking up on that edge. And then, and again, you know, this is something when you're working on your actual painting at home, do please spend a bit of time just considering what it is you're going to do, because, you know, yes, you can follow to the letter what I'm doing, but, you know, we're kind of working together on this a little bit. So if you feel that what I'm suggesting doesn't quite work with what you're doing there, then go with your instincts on it, because part of learning to paint, a big part of learning to paint is trusting your own instincts with things. I think the big mistake is, and I have found this with lots of art teachers, independent art teachers, you know, the message always seems to be, you know, my method is the right method, you know, do it like me and you know, you'll get it right. Which, okay, is fair enough if, you know, people are very skilled and experienced and everything. But for me, teaching, I think, well, that's not really the way, is it? Because I don't necessarily want hordes of people painting exactly like me. I paint like me, you know. And I want you to paint like you. If that makes sense. I want you to find your way with it, because, you know, I'm a self-taught artist, and, you know, I've spent years doing this and developing things, and, you know, yeah, I've learned lots from other artists and the way they do things, but I have sort of developed my own ways of doing things as well, that makes life easier for me, makes it more enjoyable for me. Because I've never been one to study the manual, so to speak. You know, if I get a new thing, I'm more likely just to kind of get on with, get on with it and look at the manual later, which isn't always the right approach, but that's kind of how I've always done things. Okay, so I'm going to leave that there. Can you see how I've I'm shaking the camera. How I've tempered the tones around the mouth, so I've softened it. So I've still got some of that pinky lip colour, but it's not so, it's not so harsh, if you like. It doesn't look like you've got really deep lip liner on and filled in with colour. It looks like a natural lip colour that blends with the rest of the face. So I hope that kind of makes sense and works for you. I'm just going to pan back a little bit on here, because I'm going to leave that mouth as it is, and just for this part there's just a couple more things to do. The ear has kind of got lost, so I'm going to now take up just some of this slightly darker mid-tone from the palette and try that over in this area. Again, I just want to suggest an ear. I'm not, because on your reference picture it's not super sharp anyway. It's kind of lost a little bit behind the hair. So I'm just kind of putting it in and suggesting it. I'm going to blend it with the side of the face as well. Because also as well, I've noticed it depends when you're looking at art yourself, and this might be something that you can consider too, is when you look at a piece of art, what is your eye drawn to? So particularly with faces, we tend to be very drawn to the main features of the face, and we're not really scrutinising what is going on around. Your eye takes everything in. So as long as something reads as something, I've put that little bit of pinky tone on the side of the face there, and it's not a really well defined ear, but it reads as an ear. And so all I would need to do to it is just bring a bit of lighter and darker tones around it, just to form it up a bit more. But that's about all I want to do really with that. So again, for this demonstration, I don't really want to say, right, Sophie, you've got to now do this, because that would be the wrong approach, I think. I can suggest things based, because what I'm working on here isn't your painting. It's a replica as best as I could knock up in the time. So it's very rough looking anyway. I'm just gonna, I should just tell you that I'm looking at that other side of the face towards the light. I'm just feeling that the angle of the cheek could be just softened back a little bit more. It's not quite there, and I feel like this part, I'm just going to soften that edge into the background so it becomes more kind of ambiguous, because you can't this side of your face you can't really see anyway. It's slightly disappearing round the corner there, so we don't really want any kind of strong differentiation between the side of your face and the background. It's more subtle than that, so we're going to bring a bit more light. And as I say, you know, when we get into the glazing of this, again, it'll just subtly change again, just with the light, really. And paint that all the way down onto the neck. So I'm going to, you know, I'm going to cross that tone right over that edge of the face. So that, to me, looks a bit more kind of in line with what's actually on your reference picture. But again, you know, you might not agree with me 100%, which is absolutely fine. I'm going to just take a bit of colour again. I'm just working with what I've got on the palette, so I'm not really going to stress too much about cleaning my brush off. This area here, just, I don't know if you can see that part. Let me go in. That area there, I'm just going to take a bit of light paint over that darker tone and make that lie down a bit more. Yeah. So I think that, because, you know, that cheekbone probably doesn't jut out quite as far as we had it. You know, it's a softer angle. It comes down, you know, and it's very difficult to get it right. You know, it is a bit of a challenge. Okay, so just moving back over to the ear. I've got my number 2 filbert, and I'm just gonna, that's probably a bit too strong. Again, I'm taking up little tiny bits of liquid and bringing it in to the mix on the palette. I'm just going to stroke a few suggestive gestural lights onto that ear. And again, you know, when we come to do, just going to take it a little bit on that side of the face as well. When we come to do the glazing, this will be looked at again. So slightly. I know there's still a little bit of work to do down there on the neck, but not much, and most of that will be addressed with the glazing. But, you know, just going to bring a bit of this lighter tone across the front of the neck there. Bring it up just under the chin. So the way I paint is that, you know, when you're first starting paint and you're applying paint, the pressure on the brush is probably a little bit more. When you're into the refining stages, you're really just skimming the surface of the canvas, although this isn't canvas. To just kind of scumble that colour on, you know. in quick sort of motion. But again, you know, I keep saying this, but again, this is my style of painting. You know, but maybe just, you know, I'm just kind of trying to even it up on this particular version of the painting, and bring it more in line with the colours now that are present on the face. So I think we're pretty much there with that. We've got a suggestion of an ear. This side has been slightly reworked, the nose and the mouth and the eyes, and the hair. You know, the hairline is looking a lot better, but when we come to do the glazing, again, I'll show you a technique where we can further address some of these anomalies in the transition of tone. And again, we're looking at the ambient play of light with the glazing, but that's more of a technical process. So what I'm going to do now is leave that as it is and let it completely dry back, get it as dry as possible. So hopefully by next week's session it'll be dry enough, well, it will be, because it's very thin layers of paint, for me to demonstrate the final part to this with the glazing. So I hope that was helpful. Give it a go, just work through it methodically, you know, cherry pick the bits that you think are going to work on your painting, and yet just give us a call if things don't make sense, or you know, you're thinking, what the hell is she talking about? Give me a call, that's no problem at all, and we'll have a talk about it, or even we can go on Zoom and have a talk about it. But anyway, hope you're well, stay safe, and yeah, I will see you soon. Bye for now.